All right, so today we're going to get started on After Effects. But I want you to, on your keyboard, get ready to reset the preferences. So the way to do that is hold down Option Command Shift. So these keys I'm showing you here, you need to hold those down. This will reset the preferences file, which means when we get into the After Effects software, we'll all start from the same point with the same interface. It will streamline this tutorial. So with those three keys held down, find the After Effects icon on your dock, which looks like this, and then start the software. You should get this message here and you can let go of the Shift Option Command keys. Do you want to delete your preferences files? And then click OK. So we'll just have a little bit of a pause while the software gets up and running. Okay, I can close off my keyboard viewer. So to start with, what we're going to do is click on New Project. If it's the first time, there are tutorials here that you can run here. They're kind of good. So if you've never used it before, you could do that to find your way around, but let's click on New Project. So looking around the interface, the sorts of things the tutorial covers are sort of the location of all the bits and pieces. It will talk about things like having panels like this. So that's a project. It's a panel with the project frame. This panel here has the composition frame, and so on and so on. So down the bottom is where your timeline. So you got your layer panel and you got your timeline here. And over here you got various different panels inside this frame, things like effects and presets in here and stuff like that. Up the top, you've got a section where you can actually click to go to different interfaces. So there's the default, there's a standard. If you've got a small screen, you can kind of optimize it there. The Learn one is kind of cool. That's the one that takes you through the bits and pieces and has inbuilt tutorials, so that's worth checking out if you are new to After Effects. Let's just go back to the standard. Okay. These, by the way, can be saved and manipulated, but I'll leave that for another tutorial. So let's start by checking out our assets. Now I'm going to quickly go to the Finder. So project structure is really important with After Effects like it is with every software. So I've laid out, this is my exercise 1. I've got a folder for my projects. I've got a folder for my assets, and these assets will be made available to you on Blackboard. And then I've got a folder for exports when I finish and I want to output it. So that's what we've got. Let's get started on our exercise. The folder structure is good to build before you get going because you know you're going to need it, and you really need to build your folder structure at the very outset. So let's get some assets. So if you go to the File drop-down menu and you go Import File, you can also access by double-clicking in the grey area here, which is the shortcut. The assets I'm after today are inside the, let's go one level up, in my Documents folder, and I've sorted it out. I've got an After Effects training, I've got an Exercise 1, and then the folder called Assets. So we've got two assets here, which are pictures. So they have sequential numbering, so I'm going to deselect the imported JPEG sequence, otherwise it would come in as a continuous video because that's actually how you manage time lapses. So I click on those two files and click Open. So they now appear inside my project. They're both independent files like so. So we're going to use these to actually make a little bit of a zoom effect on it. I'll show you how we do that. When you're inside After Effects, you can, inside the project panel where you see your assets, this is a bit like your bin inside other applications, you can sort them. So if you go right click, you can make a folder, and I'm going to call this my pictures. So you can make as many folders as you like. So let's grab those two and drop those in there so things are nice and neat and sorted. Twirl it open here. Something to notice about After Effects, and that is that you got a nice little preview window here. So up here it's telling me that these images are, they're bigger than 4K, so they're quite high resolution JPEGs taken on a DSLR. Both the same. Okay, so that will go down to HD, and in fact it's greater than HD, so we'd actually be able to do a bit of a zoom, which is what we're going to do today. Okay, so I've accidentally dragged that out. Let's pop that back in. Alrighty, so the next step, what we need to do is make a composition, which is what After Effects calls a timeline. So down here on the bottom of the project panel is a button to make a new composition, or you can go to the composition drop-down menu and go new composition here. So I do that. I'm going to call this my Singapore zoom, because that's what it's going to be. Now, in the presets here, you can choose the settings. So that's the frame size and the frame rate. So there's lots of presets, and there will be one that's good for us. So if we scroll down inside here, HD TV 1080-25 is HD at 25 frames per second, which is typically what we would make in a broadcast situation. So let's click on that. You see here the frame rate says 25. Now the duration is set here. It's easier to make things long and then cut it back. If you make it short, it can get a bit fiddly because you'll find that things will be pre-trimmed. So if you're not sure, make it longer than you need. You can always shorten it later. 30 seconds is actually going to be long enough for what we need to do here. The background color is if nothing's there, we won't have a background here, so that won't matter. So let's click OK. So we've now got a new composition. If you wanted to check your composition, you just go composition and then go to the composition settings, and then you can check it here, and you can change the composition after you started, which is good to know. All right, so now that we've done that, and look, here's the composition here. It's the only one we've got. If I was having multiple compositions, oh look, let's do it anyway. Hang on, sorry, wrong button. What I meant to do is go right click new folder, and I'm going to call this my compositions, and then I'm going to sort that into there just to keep my interface nice and clean and tidy. You can still twirl it open to see all the assets you've got if you like. So down here is my composition. It shows me the name there. Let's drop one of these pictures in. So we've got two. I reckon we go the wide shot first. So I'm going to drag that down straight down into my layer panel down the bottom, and then that now appears as my first image. Now you'll notice that what it does is it crops out a 1920 by 1080 slice of the picture. So let's have a look at how we can make that a bit smaller. So if we go down to transform, where do they hide transform? Layer, transform, fit to comp width, fit to comp height. Let's just go fit to comp, see what happens. So it resizes the image and optimizes it so it fits in the frame. So that's often a really good shortcut because it gives you the whole image. So what we want to do with this is just give it a bit of a gentle zoom. We also probably want to trim it back. So if you look down here at your timeline, here's your blue position bar. Obviously no change in the image yet because there's no movement. That's the beginning at 0 seconds, and there's the end at 30. At the moment, it's got the source name. If you click up the top, you can change it to the layer name by clicking here. Sometimes that may be useful. You might decide, look, maybe I'm going to call this picture 1. So hit the return key. So I go to layer name, hit the return key. I'm going to keep all that information, but I'm going to go pick 1. I think my name has got so big that it can't store it. Hang on a minute. Pick 1, enter. Thank you. All right, so I'm just doing that so it's obvious it's pick 1. Let's say I want this to go over 8 seconds. So let's drag the end of it. This will trim back the image. So you see when I position my mouse on the edge, I can trim it back. So let's make that go 8 seconds. And there we go. If I want to check, I can always park to that bit. Down the bottom, got a little scale button where you can zoom in. So if I want that to be exactly 8, there we go, gorgeous. All right, so I scale that back by clicking on this. Now, at the moment, it's still a static. Let's look at how we could do a little bit of a zoom on this. So looking at the settings or the parameters, there's a few ways of doing this. Now you can click here, find the transform, and you can drill in and find the values. That's one way to do it. There's also some useful shortcuts. So for example, the S key on your keyboard is the shortcut for scale. And there's also P, which is position. There's others. There's rotation. There's the anchor point. What is that thing? Let's go hit S to go back to scale, because that's the one I'm going to adjust. Now, just in here, notice how this is actually telling us it's 37 on one axis and 31.2. And that is because of the way that we actually scaled it back. It has mucked around with the aspect. So let's make both of them 37. It's locked. Let's unlock. Let's make both of them 37. Okay, and then what that will do is that will mean that the picture won't have its proportions manipulated. Okay, and now I've done it, I can relock it by pressing that button. Now, what I want to do is have a zoom in. So what I'm going to do is move my position bar to the very beginning, and then I'm going to activate keyframes by clicking on the time vary button, which is this one here. When I clicked on that, it became light blue to show it was active, and you've now got one keyframe here to show that as well as being active, it's made a keyframe. Let's now go to the very end, which is at 8 seconds. Now I've dragged it, but look, I could also click in here and type 800, enter, which would also take me to the end. The page up and page down keys also move us back and forth. And when I actually do that, I see that I've been a little bit inexact in my trimming. I think it needs to go one more frame. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to insert a keyframe at the end. Now, when you've got the time vary button on, let's zoom that back. If I make an adjustment here, it automatically inserts a keyframe like you can see. So I'm quite fond of inserting keyframes by doing this method. You can also drag on handles on the image and do it as well. But I quite actually like using these because you get a lot of fine-grained control. And you can also type in and put a number in there. So what we want to see is how much that zooms in. Is it the right speed? So to get a real-time preview, we need to come up here to where the preview panel is. So the preview panel builds preview. Now the way After Effects actually plays back is different to edit systems. Edit systems often play single streams in real time. After Effects will put everything into the RAM, then play back. So what I will do is hit the play button here, and you'll see these little green dots. As I've dragged through, it's already started trying to cache frames. So let's hit the play button here. So it's able to process this pretty much in real time. Oh no, if you look at the top, it's not quite able to do it. It's about half real time. So now that I've done that, if I go back to the beginning and play, which I can use the spacebar for, it will now play in real time because it's cached it all. So that's quite a nice little zoom. It's giving us quite a good speed, isn't it? All right, let's bring our second image in. So that's this one here. So we drag that again down to the layer panel. Now, if you want to have it in a particular place, what you can actually do, I'm just going to release that there so it doesn't drag out. Popped it out of there. There we go. I'm actually going to park this on the frame where I want it to begin. So maybe we might later on want to do a cross dissolve. So I'm going to bring that back to 6 seconds, which I can do by typing here and go 600. So now what I can do, zoom in a bit here, and then when I drag this image here in, I'm looking at this one here because I can see it in the preview panel, you get a little blue line that shows you where it's going to go. So when I'm lined up, that means I'm dragging it to that place. And there we go. So that's dragged it up onto the top layer, so it's sitting above. Now, because it's just like an edit system, really, whatever's on the top obscures whatever's on the bottom. If you want to flick layers around, it's really easy. You just swap them like that. So switching layers around is a piece of cake. If I park on this, you'll see that more obvious. So I switch the layers around. Okay, so that top one's on top, switch the layers around. So I'm now going to rename this one. So I'm going to hit the return key again, and I'm going to call that one pick 2. There we go. Now, in this case, same camera was used for these. I can probably just sit here and copy these keyframes. Let's have a go at that. So I click here, and I'm going to go Command C. I'm then going to go to 6 seconds, go to this one, open the position, turn on the time vary, and then go Command V. Didn't like it. That's because I did scale. My error. Let's go back. So if I go back to this one, and right, undid too many steps. Okay, we're there. It's a scale. I should hit S. Let's try that again. So I'll park on the beginning, and then turn on that. Go Command V. Yep, that's better. So I've actually copied the same move. So now when I play through this one and I go to this one, they'll be the same. So let's run a preview on these again. And so I'm going to go back to here, hit play. So it'll process these as fast as it can as it goes through. It's not quite real time, but you get the sense they look pretty smooth. So let's do a little bit more work on this. So a couple of things we should do here are, so it'd be nice to have a fade here. I'll show you how to do that. So we're parked at 6 seconds. Let's hit the T key, which is the shortcut for transparency. Turn on keyframing. Let's put this fade over a second. So on this first keyframe, the opacity will be 0, totally transparent. I'll then go to 7 seconds, and then at 7 seconds, I'm going to change this to be 100. Let's go back and have a look, and there we go. We've now made a fade. If I want the fade to be longer, I've got handle up to 2 seconds. So let's move to 8 seconds. Zoom in a bit so I can see it. I can drag that keyframe, shift it. I'm now going to have a 2-frame fade. Zoom back out again. Play. This will be slower than the previous one because it's over 2 seconds. So changing the duration of the fade is pretty easy. Now, if there's only the 2, probably what we'd want to do is bring this to a finish. So we've got a timing here of about 6 seconds. So let's say we hold a freeze at the end till about 15. So let's go to 15 seconds. And then let's, I can't trim the back end. This is a bit annoying. I'll show you how you can get around that. Go composition, and then go composition settings. Let's just for the moment make this 40 seconds and go OK. So now that we've done that and we scale it back, I can grab the back end. And this is why having longer compositions is often easier. So I want to drag that back to about 15 seconds, which is about there. Let me quickly zoom in. Yep, that'll do. So now at the moment, when I go back to my scaling, this keeps going, and at the very end, it just comes to an abrupt stop. I want to show you how I could smooth that out. I park on this last keyframe and go right click, go to my keyframe assistant, and I'm going to do an easy ease in. That changes the ballistics of the keyframe. So now when I play it, so it's probably going to have to render it out for a moment, you'll see at the end it comes to a gentle stop. Let me go back and play that again. You'll see it now in real time. So it comes to a gentle rest and then you get a nice clean end. Now that we've seen that, we might want to pick this up with an easy ease in. So go right click, keyframe assistant, and then go easy ease in. So now let's go and play it. And there goes our fade there, goes to the end, and then it comes to rest. All right, so now we've built a little bit of a couple of nice gentle effects. So this is a great way of making still pictures come to life with the movement. So if we're happy with this and we want to output it, I'll show you that in the next tutorial.